Like a guy invents an engine, God created mankind. A car's engine is only designed to run on gasoline. Any other fuel will cause it to malfunction. In a similar vein, God made humans to be machines that rely only on Him. If our souls were meant to burn or eat, He would be that fuel or nourishment. Nobody else does it. Therefore, it is fruitless to pray that God will bless us with the freedom to pursue happiness, without from organized religion. There is no place for God to bestow joy and contentment on us other from Himself. Whatever silent prayer you have made or tear you have shed, God hears them all. Even when you feel completely alone, He is there to listen to your heart screams and understand the extent of your pain. There will be moments when life is very difficult. Everybody gets tired sometimes, and when that happens, our energy and morale take a nosedive. Always keep in mind that there are other people going through the same thing with you. There is a promise of rest in Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. When we are fighting our hardest, it might be hard to see anything except darkness. When our issues pile up to an intolerable level, it's easy to feel alone and lost. In Mere Christianity, Lewis argues that trusting in God requires starting each day as if nothing has happened. But keep in mind one strong reality. God sees your anguish and hears your cries. One knowledge will help you get through these difficult times. No matter what, God's plan will ultimately succeed, and His timing is flawless. So let us have faith in His perfect timing and purpose. Reading from Lamentations 3:25-26, we learn that the Lord is good to those whose hope is in Him, to the one who seeks Him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. And from 1 John 3:20, we learn that God knows all, even when our hearts condemn us. Remember that God is still reigning on His throne before you lose hope, my dear brother and sister. God with us, He is also known as Jehovah Nissi and Jehovah Shalom. Keep holding on to hope. God knows how tired you are. Calm down and give Him the time He needs. Your Heavenly Father has set a time for you to receive His rewards. Get ready to have your brains and emotions opened to hear some vital biblical truths about waiting on God that I will share with you today. Being patient while we wait for God to answer our prayers is a huge test for Christians. In Mere Christianity, Lewis states, I am sure that God keeps no one waiting unless He sees that it is good for him to wait. It seems like nothing is changing during this waiting period, and every Christian has been through it. We wonder why God allows us to wait so frequently. Nevertheless, I want to reassure you that the timing is perfect according to God. He is the deity of exactitude and structure. Isaiah 46:10 states, I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. In this passage, God summons a bird of prey from the east and a man from a faraway region to fulfill His plan. Throughout the Bible, this motif appears on several occasions. Being patient, particularly when one must wait on God, is one of life's greatest trials. If you're praying for answers to questions like, God, why is it taking so long? Are you listening to me? Have you forgotten me? Do you care? Then you're not alone. Perhaps you're asking God to alleviate a persistent pain or to touch the heart of someone you care about. According to Jeremiah 33:3, call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. Maybe you're in the market for a secured employment position. When you're waiting for something important, like financial assistance for your family, healing from deep emotional wounds, a renewed relationship, or the blessing of a life partner. It can be tough. The virtue of patience is tested when one's prayers go unanswered, though. No visible sign from God, no sign that He has heard you, no sign that He is at work, despite your steadfast faith and wholehearted belief. Lord, show me something, anything, is all you pray for. But there are moments when you get nothing but stillness. So, where does God stand at this very moment? Why is He being so silent? Recall the account of Joseph found in Genesis. Years passed while Joseph endured his brother's treachery, servitude, and incarceration. God, however, was with him the whole time, orchestrating everything that happened. Even when we can't see it coming, God's timing is perfect. As Joseph reminded his brothers in Genesis 50:20, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." We may learn this lesson from Joseph's journey. Some people, like Joseph, may feel as though they are waiting for rescue while confined in a prison or a pit. I want to reassure you, nevertheless, that God's apparent silence is not an indication that He is not present. Even while you wait, God is at work. In the background, His grace, power, provision, and goodness are at work. His love for you is so great that He is always trying to do what is best for you. He wants to bless you and see you succeed because He is a good Father who has great intentions for you. Let us lay our brains and hearts bare to receive these vital ideas from the Bible as we explore today how to wait patiently on God. First principle: God does not deny when He delays. I am sure that God keeps no one waiting unless He sees that it is good for him to wait, Lewis writes in Mere Christianity. When you get what you want, it is always something better or something entirely different. Prayer is the first step in the right path. This is just the beginning, not the final move. There is a common misconception that waiting is pointless in today's fast-paced society. Our time is valuable, thus we live in a fast-paced society that demands immediate results from technology. As if we were losing out on opportunities, waiting seemed futile. Fear and uncertainty could set in during this waiting period. Because waiting goes against our habit of quick satisfaction, we could begin to wonder whether something is amiss. When we don't know what's going to happen, doubt starts to seep in and waiting becomes more difficult. We start to wonder if God will save us. When uncertainty sets in, the need to assert one's authority grows. Herein is the risk, though. Things can go horribly wrong if we attempt to exert personal control over the waiting period. There will be issues if we try to handle things on our own, as the Bible warns. In Proverbs 3:5-6, we read, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight." A temptation to assert our will arises, nevertheless, when we are kept waiting for what feels like an endless amount of time, when our prayers go unanswered, and the passage of time persists. Maybe you're feeling this way today. After all your waiting, praying, and trusting, nothing has changed. The question, what if, creeps into your mind, and before you realize it, you're tempted to give up on God and your faith because He fell short of your expectations. However, I must inquire, how much time does God have to convince you to abandon Him? How much longer will you wait before you cut ties with Him because He has failed to meet your expectations? Keep in mind, that God's timing is different from ours. Therefore, as you wait, do not give in to the need to take charge. When it feels like time is running out, trust that God's timing is perfect. Remember that God is at work even in the midst of your waiting. Thus, maintain your trust, hope, and patience. Think about what happened to Lazarus in John 11. With the hope that Jesus would come and heal their sick brother Lazarus, Mary and Martha sent a telegram to Jesus. Unfortunately, Lazarus died because Jesus postponed his coming. Mary and Martha were inconsolable and wondered why Jesus had delayed his arrival when he did come. However, by performing a miraculous resurrection, Jesus proved that God's delays are not rejections. A helpful reminder can be found in Isaiah 55:8-9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. My ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are greater than your thoughts, God says, describing how his perspective is higher than ours. The broader view is clear to him, and he knows how to best serve us. Therefore, let us not give up when we experience setbacks. Rather, we should put our faith in God's wisdom and perfect time. Even when we can't see it, we should trust that He is working all things out for our good. Delays in God's plans aren't rejections, but rather chances to grow in faith and see His mighty hand at work. The second principle, patience, is a virtue. In Mere Christianity, Lewis writes, "The great thing, if one can, is to stop regarding all the unpleasant things as interruptions of one's own or real life. The truth is, of course, that what one calls the interruptions are precisely one's real life, the life that God is sending day by day. What one calls one's real life is a phantom of one's own imagination. This, at least, is what I see at moments of insight, but it's hard to remember it all the time. There will be moments when we feel like God is dragging His feet in answering our petitions. It appears that God is mute, despite our passionate prayers for healing, provision, and breakthroughs. It is normal to feel let down and to wonder whether God is ignoring us or has forgotten about us when we pray. In Letters to Malcolm, Lewis writes, "We must lay before Him what is in us, not what ought to be in us. The prayer preceding all prayers is, 'May it be the real I who speaks. May it be the real Thou that I speak to.'" Keep in mind that God's delays do not indicate His lack of interest or unwillingness to take action. Rather, they present chances for greater miracles, more faith, and the manifestation of His majesty. In the same way that Jesus showed His power over death by delaying His visit to Lazarus, God frequently uses delays in our lives to set the stage for incredible things. Being patient might seem like a lost virtue in today's fast-paced society. Fast food, lightning-fast internet, and immediate gratification are the norm for us now. Everything should proceed in accordance with our timetable and intentions. Truthfully, though, God's schedule is never congruent with our own. Having trust, being resilient, and not giving up are all parts of patience. Keeping hope even when things look hopeless and submitting our will to God's will are significant themes. Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the land yields its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. So too, we are called to wait patiently for the fulfillment of God's promises, just like the farmer who patiently waits for the harvest. Trusting in God's faithfulness, especially in the face of uncertainty, is an intentional choice. Patience is not a passive attitude. Patience isn't easy, that much is obvious. Dealing with difficulties, having our prayers appear unheard, and feeling that time is passing us by is not easy. Our confidence wanes, and the urge to intervene grows. Frustration and disappointment are the inevitable results of trying to force God's timeline. Recognize that patience is a virtue that molds our character and helps us persevere. Romans 5:3-4 says, "Not only that, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. So let us have faith in God's perfect timing, because He is working everything out for best. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Romans 8:28. Our time spent waiting is not a waste, but rather an opportunity to mature, become more like Christ, and get ready to receive the rewards God has in store for us. Let us then learn patience while we wait, trusting that God is reliable and that the times He has promised will come to pass. Principle 3. Trust in God's perfect timing. The enemy desires that men be concerned with what they do. Our business is to keep them thinking about what will happen to them. The future is, of all things, the least like eternity. It is the most completely temporal part of time, for the past is frozen and no longer flows, and the present is all lit up with eternal rays. Consequently, encouraging people to focus on the future, on things they can't control, leads to anxiety that can only be overcome through faith, according to Lewis in The Screwtape Letters. According to the Bible, we should be patient and let God's complete work be done. The waiting room of life is the perfect place to practice patience, which is anything but passive. Although you might not see any changes on the surface, there are major shifts taking place underneath. Being patient is like lifting weights for your spirit. It strengthens you, allowing you to change, adapt, and persevere. Thus, do not get discouraged if things are not moving as swiftly as you had thought, and do not undervalue the waiting periods. God has more good things in store for you when the time comes, if you wait. You will reap rewards beyond your wildest dreams when God determines that you are ready. Every one of us has dreams we long to realize, problems we wish we could fix, and the need to find true love. However, it's normal to feel frustrated and anxious when the waiting period appears longer than expected, and to wonder, when will this finally happen? Sometimes, though, it's not God's inaction that's causing the holdup. It's our own lack of readiness for what He has in store. No matter how prepared you think you are, if you could see God's vision, you'd realize you're woefully inadequate. You require additional time to develop, change, and accumulate wisdom. Genesis 21 tells the tale of Abraham and Sarah again. The promise of being the father of many nations was made to Abraham by God. Isaac, God's son, was born to Abraham and Sarah when he was 190 years old, respectively. Think about how heavy it must have been to wait nearly a century for a promise to be fulfilled. But God, in His perfect timing, did just that. We frequently encounter circumstances in life where we anxiously seek God's involvement. Our hearts are heavy with prayer for answers, restoration, sustenance, and peace. It would appear, though, that God's timing differs from our own. Feelings of impatience, anxiety, or even doubt might set in when we wonder if God is listening to our prayers or will do something about them. Embrace the time you have to wait as an opportunity to grow, improve, and get ready. God transformed Abraham and Sarah into vessels prepared to receive His promise, just as they overcame difficulties and hardships during their time of waiting. Let us therefore establish a foundation of trust, my beloved companions. Let us have faith that God keeps His promises and is at work, directing events to unfold in accordance with His perfect will. We should eagerly await God's fulfillment of His promise, for He will do so at the proper time. Embrace the season of waiting with an attitude of thankfulness, praise, and worship, remembering God's steadfast love, sovereignty, and goodness. A significant truth is offered to us in Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. This phrase encourages us to commit our timeliness, wants, and understanding to God. It beckons us to put our whole confidence in His omniscience, fidelity, and sovereignty. Faith that acknowledges that God's methods and timing are greater than ours compels us to continue praying, even when we have no hope and the situation appears hopeless. Every time, His timing is spot on. The fourth principle, find peace in God's timing. In the Screwtape Letters, Lewis writes, "Men are not angered by mere misfortune, but by misfortunes conceived as injuries. The sense of injury depends on the feeling that a legitimate claim has been denied. The more claims on life that your patient can be induced to make, the more often he will feel injured and as a result ill-tempered. His mind can be directed to the present sphere of humility and quietness. Once he accepts this, he will find tranquility and a sense of peace. Psalm 46:10 instructs us to be still and know that I am God. This verse emphasizes the significance of calming our hearts and minds, of pausing amid life's hustle and bustle to recognize God's presence and supreme dominion. Within this tranquility, we unearth a tranquility that surpasses comprehension, shielding our souls from anxieties and uncertainties. Appreciating the path of waiting is also essential to finding serenity in God's timing. Instead of viewing waiting as a frustrating or stagnant period, we should view it as an opportunity to contemplate and grow closer to God. Learning to trust completely and give up control is the path to finding peace in God's timing. Understanding that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't match our expectations, and releasing our urge to control outcomes are key components. A source of solace can be found in Philippians 4:6-7, which reads, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This verse sheds light on the fact that genuine serenity does not originate from mastery over life's challenges, but rather from releasing our concerns and trusting in God's absolute control. Discovering peace in God's timing within a world full of chaos and uncertainty can be a challenging task. Anxieties, doubt, and an attempt at self-control are all possibilities. On the other hand, true tranquility is ours when we let go of our worries and believe that God is working all things out for perfect timing. Our faith grows stronger, and our hearts are ready to receive God's benefits as we wait patiently and expectantly. Therefore, let us go out on the path to finding peace at God's appointed time. Trusting that He is sovereign and that His time is perfect, let us give Him control of our anxieties and fears. And let us take solace in the knowledge that His serenity will encircle our souls as we eagerly anticipate His arrival, leading us closer to Him. The fifth principle: trust in God's ultimate dominion. In Mere Christianity, Lewis writes, imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps you can understand what he is doing. He's getting the drains right and stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. You knew that those jobs needed doing, and so you are not surprised. But presently, he starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make sense. What on earth is he up to? The reason behind this is that the house he is constructing is very different from the one you had in mind. He is adding a new wing here, a floor there, running up towers and courtyards. You were hoping to be transformed into a respectable cottage, but instead he is constructing a palace. He plans to personally move in and live there. It is God's purpose, not human ambition, that will ultimately succeed, as stated in Proverbs 19:21. Even though we may think of our own ideas, God's plan will ultimately be the one that stands. When things aren't clear right away, it's natural to doubt God's absolute control. Sometimes we may ask why things are unfolding the way they are, or why God doesn't seem to heed our prayers. When things get tough, though, we need to keep in mind that God's methods are higher and better than ours. Even though we don't see how He's working things out, we may have faith that He has our best interests at heart. When you put your trust in God's absolute control, you must also put your trust in His impeccable timing. It entails acknowledging and submitting to His dominion and control over all. Having faith in God's absolute dominion can provide us strength and peace in a world full of uncertainty. Psalm 103:19 is a strong reminder that God is in control, even when things appear to be beyond our control. It states, "The Lord has established His throne in heaven, and His kingdom rules over all." He has better plans, more magnificent ways, and will succeed in everything He sets out to do. To put our trust in God's absolute control, we must give Him control of our hearts, minds, and will. It means trusting that He sees the big picture and understands what's best for us, even when we can't. He has made everything beautiful in its time, says Ecclesiastes 3:1. While our timetable may not line up with God's, we must trust that His timing is perfect. Trusting that God always keeps His word and that His time is perfect helps us to be patient and strong when we're tired and impatient. Since God is ultimately in charge, we can put our faith in His absolute dominion. Give Him control of our lives and all we're planning, and rest easy knowing that He has a purpose for it all. In the words of Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Friends, I implore you to quiet yourself and hear God's voice. Your certainty is in the stillness of your soul. He's expressing, "My child, I see your pain. I hear your cry. Trust in me, and I will carry you. Hold on, for the dawn is coming. Your perseverance will lead to victory, and your faith will be your guiding light." God is aware of your exhaustion, but He is also aware of your great potential. Never give up. Support is always there. In the face of any trials you may face, may the divine fortitude and tranquility envelop you. Post your affirmation, "God is always with me," in the comment area if this principle resonated with you. This prayer's blessings have been granted to you, I declare in Jesus' name. It is my pleasure to have you here today. Please hit the like button and spread the word if you think this message touched someone's heart. If you would like to see more motivational videos like this, subscribe and hit the bell button. Keep your faith, remain patient, and know that God is in control. Be patient. God will be faithful. Your anguish is temporary, and your prayers will be heard. Have faith in what He has planned, since He is making a joyful and hopeful future possible. Your cries are heard by God. Remain steadfast, because His love knows no end, and His promises are sincere.